Where Sky and Water Meet, photographs of Humberside by Ian Beesley, Philip Cosker, Michael Harper and David Sample. 100 pages, a nice just over 8 inches by just under 8 inches, so over 8 inches, under 8 inches. Looks a bit square, a bit deceiving, but it's not quite. Like I said, 100 pages at 4 photographers, published by Lincolnshire and Humberside Arts in 1982. 4 established photographers at the time. I think it was commissioned or funded by the Arts Council of Great Britain. I think it had financial help, and it was published by Lincolnshire and Humberside Arts. So I think Lincolnshire and Humberside Arts wanted to commission 3 photographers to celebrate the Humber River, I guess, and everything which goes on around it, and life along the river. I think there was a massive response to photographers wanting to be part of it, and they ended up commissioning 4 photographers, which ended up being Ian, Philip, Michael and David. The layout of the book, this is a Douglas Dunn intro. This is a Clive Fox, director of Lincolnshire Arts in 1982. That's his sort of the preface. And then you've got this introduction by Douglas Dunn. And then in each section here, you've got let me just pull it out. You've got an introduction of the photographer and their CV. And then you have the run of images. At the back, there is financial assistance, so that's acknowledgement, and that's it really. I think the book came to light because there was a big focus on the River Humber at the time, and I think Lincolnshire and Humberside Arts wanted to promote the river as a unique area, because on the 24th of June 1981, the Humber Bridge was complete after many years of making it. So it was a real significant landmark, and I think this was a way of celebrating that landmark and celebrating the area and celebrating the traditions and the cultures of the place and the landscape. So let's have a look at it. And I'm not really sure how many pictures per photography you've got, but what I'll do is I'll just quickly introduce the photographer. 1954, Ian Beesley. Here's his awards, his exhibitions, his published work. And here is Backcroft Sands. Now, I don't know geographically where these are, to be precise. I know that obviously in the Humber area. Beautiful, beautiful. What a landscapey, cool fields. I think Ian is currently artist in residence at the Bradford Institute of Health Research. So he's still going strong. The River Ouse, light on the water. Nice. We're just showing you the conditions, the atmospherics of the landscape. A maze of Alderborough. You've got the river there. It's quite into sort of how almost the land has a sort of one focal point, isn't there? There's like a sort of main focal point in a lot of these, like the lines, the posts, the tree, like almost like the roots and the maze. And the horizon there with the trees. Farm tracks near Swinefleet. And now we're going into a more urban area. Now we've got the Humber Bridge, and then we've got St Thorpe Shopping Centre. It's like a face, isn't it? Interesting. So we started off with the urban the rural landscape, and now we're going into the shopping centres and the landscape, which is really affected by people and it's influenced by people. These are like postcard ads. Rocking Horse Amusement Arcade, Withersley. This is quite. And got the industrial side of it. Gould Docks. There's a real contrast, showing the contrast there of the landscapes. It's interesting though, there's no real influence of people on there, is there? There's nothing. There's people missing out of all of these shots, which is quite interesting. And now we move into Philip Cosker. I think Philip's based in Lincolnshire. He's still a photographer. Here is his list of academic achievements, photography. This is interesting. Now this is a bit different. This is Hessel. Now we've got a date on them, 17th of the 7th, 81, whereas we haven't on this. We haven't on Ian's work, but now we're moving into Philip's work. We've got a bit of, we've got some dates. Now this is very much people on the landscape. This is Hull. And this is Beverley. Withersley, Hessel. And that's the cover. And this is in Cleethorpes. This is 28 of the 681. And then this is Bridlington and Beverley. Talking to his dog, nice shape, nice coming together, lovely frame to bring that in. It's a nice triangle. Hull, and then Cleethorpes. And now change again. So there's quite a broad range, isn't there? Now, this is that sort of night stuff, isn't it? It's lovely. Look at that. Love that. Nighttime photography, sort of shutter speeds. And nighttime photography with long shutter speeds and exposures and tripods and cold evenings, sitting looking for the picture and getting the dark to illuminate eventually and the shadows to pop out, and really surreal effect on that. It's gorgeous. It's wonderful. And that was in Barmston. And this is Farnborough. I presume it's at night. It's shot in an interesting way. It's sort of white cloud, so yeah, interesting. Beverley, it's a great shot. That's in Bridlington. Be interested to look at a map of the river area and see where they focused on in terms of geographics for each one. This is Hull, there's cricket in the industrial background. Quite a heavy print of the people on Cleethorpes Beach. And then we've got Hull, slow blind walk. It's interesting. Heaven or Hell. Looks like some fate or something like that. Yeah, Lost Children. And then we've got Fairthorpe, the old washed down gun emplacement or something like that, by the looks of it. Now we move to Michael Harper. So we've had landscape and denial of people with Ian's work, and then we've just had Phil's work where it's all people led. This is Michael's work, this is his exhibitions and his employment, his academic work and stuff like that. So this is, what, by the looks of it, the more texture of the landscape and the trees, and much more of how nature has carved itself out on the landscape, and is obviously with the trees forever changing. You've got the nice layers of the cliffs, which is in Middleton, and it's a quarry. Okay, so there's a theme with here which is looks like that using, like with the quarry shots, it's introducing industry on the environment and linking it together, and the same with this. And that is in Immingham. I'm not sure what that is. Oh, I know what that is. The innards of a tyre or something like that. It looks like it's all man-made fibres, and that looks like a tyre track or something. I might be totally wrong. I have no idea. Goole water tyre by the looks of it. And we've got Goole, Harper. But it's definitely looking at the influence of industry and man on the landscape and with the pigeons. And that looks a bit bright on the LCD, but it is touching on the overexposed, that pigeon loft. And there we go again. That's market waiting. And then we're back onto the shingle on the beach. A bit more of a, I guess, a play on movement and time with the sea. Interesting. And Flambeau. And some more night stuff. Skipworth coming. It's quite an experimental place, wasn't it? Stage this, isn't it? It's quite an experimental look, this. There's a lot of night shots, there's a lot of variation with all the shoots. No photographer here is sticking to a particular style. They're practicing all sorts of different techniques and aesthetics to all their shots, which is really interesting. They have stuck to certain themes within their shooting, but in terms of searching for different things, they've used a lot of different techniques, and it's interesting. Michael there just covered a few different subjects, but used a lot of long exposures and a lot of technical aspects to use as well in the shots as well. So it's quite interesting. This is David Sample. There's a list of where he was born in Yorkshire, 1950, Medway College, a bit of his academic and professional lists and qualifications and publications and stuff like that. His work seems to be, isn't that beautiful, man's sort of interaction with the landscape, with a pipeline by the looks of it there, and then with the river and the cranes and the ship. It looks like a long exposure here because the water is moving. It's a bit of blurred that, but it looks almost like a beautiful painting. And with this one, you've got the shipyards and you've got the foreground, you've got the boats and little, don't know what they are, rowing boats or something. I don't know what they are, but they're quite blurred. I think it's obviously a long exposure to its point to get the whole shot. And I think there's quite a bit of movement on there, but it actually looks very atmospheric. It's beautiful. I do love that. It looks great in the LCD. Playing with lines and shadow and you know, it's totally different to these shots, but it's interesting. And here we go. That looks quite, unless that's marshlands, yeah. It's interesting. I haven't seen a boat there. Docked out. Oh, that looks a bit different. Very much a contrast again with man's involvement on the landscape. And these are in Immingham, February 1982. They've got dates on. Bishop Wilton, November 1981. That's great. And then sort of abstract. That's a great shot. Look at that. I like this. Let's come down to this. You see the sea. That's such a great shot. It's one of my favourite shots in here. Such a clever shot. You can see the sea there and the sort of lifebuoy ring or something there looking out to sea. Very clever shot. Beautiful. And that's in Barmston. Skelton, 1981. Millington Dale. And this fenced off sort of thing must have some relevance to the land and the tyre mark going off. There must have some relevances, I don't know. There's no real text to accompany it. And the introduction's not as in-depth as you'd want to really put point on these pictures. Do look that, I like that though. That's lovely, I like that. That's a really interesting shot. It's really interesting that, because I've just learned something with his work, because I love the way he's split it into thirds, he's juxtaposed that onto that line there. It's quite an interesting, you know, you learn so much by looking at how composition works and how photographers think ahead of for the composition, and don't just rely on the random process of things happening. They're seeing it, they're feeling it, they're seeing this, and they're bringing that in. And it's the same with this shot here. I mean, that's monumental shot. That I've learned something off that. It's made me want to investigate certain things when I'm looking for stuff. It's fantastic. So is that. What a great shot. This is in Barmston. Some interesting pictures, 1980s, an interesting time. Some great photographers, some great photography. I wanted to share that with you because you can still pick this up. And it's one of them little rare books you never see, nobody ever talks about. And it's sitting there in somebody's bookshelf and it never gets any light, or nobody sheds any light on it. And I'm pleased to have. I'm pleased I've looked at it. Some lovely pictures in there, and I've learned something by looking at this. And thank you. I will try and put the links for the photographers' websites in the information box. I've looked up two of them and found that, but there's two of these guys, Michael and David, I can't find anything for, which is their website. But I'm going to keep searching. Hopefully by the time I've done the post-production on this, we will find them. I will have found them. Please sign up to the channel. Please spread the word about the channel. And let's keep the faith, and let's keep taking pictures, and let's keep reviewing and looking at it and learning from it. Thank you.